Well, we are live. We just got live, and hello, everyone. This is Kirk Banks said with the Minocqua Brewing Company Times, which is our Substack page, and I'm joined here by Ben Cominos, who is from WHBY in Appleton, but he's just came back from a long trip to Thailand. Didn't look like it was very sunny in Thailand, Ben.
Yeah, can you not see it on my face? I'll be honest. I'm disappointed with my tan right now. I should be more tan. As a Greek, I should be darker than this. That's my philosophy on it. I don't know. I was in the sun. I think it rained for 10 minutes the entire time I was out there. It was God, I think it was 110-degree difference from when I left when it was -40, you know?
Oh wow!
Yeah, and
Wow.
fun fact, I was supposed to fly out of the Minneapolis airport the day after the general strike, but they ended up rerouting me to Detroit because that strike was so effective. I'm not complaining, but it definitely impacted a lot of people, that's for sure, and I hope in a positive way.
All right. So, Ben, for people who are joining, and we're getting a flood of people joining, I kind of love this. This
Yeah,
is kind of new to me, but for the people joining, um, we do these. I call it office hours, and they're really office half hours because really, let's be honest. There's not a lot to say for an entire hour, but and Ben's already done it on a radio show for like 3 hours,
yeah,
but we do office hours during the week. And it digs deeper into what some of the Minocqua Brewing Company Times writers have written about. And so on Tuesdays, Ben generally writes an essay for us. And today, his essay made me sad, as many of them do, because there's not a lot of positive things to write about these days. But he wrote all about his experiences traveling abroad and being shamed like an American has never been shamed before.
yeah.
And so I'd love to, tell us a little bit. I mean, for people who haven't read your article today, tell us kind of what happened to you over there.
Yeah, it quite literally started on the plane because we had the Alex Preddy assassination, murder, execution, whatever you want to call it. We know what we saw. While I was on the plane, I think I lost Wi-Fi access 10 minutes later, and I was sitting next to a guy a couple years younger than me from South Korea, but living in Dearborn, Michigan, going through his residency, becoming a spinal surgeon, the kind of person you want in this country. Um, and I looked at him, I said, "It looks like ICE just killed another guy." And he immediately looks at me and he wasn't j talking crap on America. It was not derogatory. He said, "This makes me sad. It makes me sad watching this happen, that this is happening in America." And he even went on, I didn't talk about it in the article. He goes on to say, in South Korea, back in April, if you remember correctly, I did a segment about it. The people stormed the equivalent of the White House in South Korea because the president declared martial law. Stop me when you heard this before. To He declared martial law to stop anti-state dissidents, Antifa, if you will, and they ended up their version of Congress, their courts ended up shutting that crap down, and he got impeached. And it was the second impeachment since 2017 for this kind of stuff. And he was stating this. This was a taste of what I was going to experience. I'll allow you to jump in, but I can keep going
No, I mean,
with
yeah,
person by person.
yeah. So, I mean, a Korean guy who is going to be a doctor that we need because we have a huge shortage of doctors and nurses in America is not is going to is probably going to for better opportunities, leave America for better opportunities. It sounds like people defecting from Russia into the United States, like in the 80s, like, during the Olympics and stuff like that. Yeah, it sucks, man.
Guardian has an article out today about. I talked about it on the show today. There are people working. It was an AI company. I'm blanking on the name, and I apologize for that. They just took a job in Austria because they said well, now that they're in Austria, they're not worried about their work being declared too woke. They're not worried about losing their lab assistants because of an ICE raid. They're not worried about any of that stuff in Austria. And they said even if Democrats came around and elected an AOC or a Pritzker or, God forbid, a Newsom, um, it doesn't mean that in 4 more years there's not going to be some JD Vance or something that's going to do the same stuff. So We're watching the brain drain after 70 years of building the trust with some of the smartest people. 6 months in, and you're starting to watch this stuff kind of trend in the other direction here. And that's coming from somebody who actually follows it. I started the article off. I was, I was in Thailand. I was trying to meet some women. You guys know how it goes when you get out there. I'm a single guy. I do what I want. And I'm at a dance club the first night that I'm there. The first group of three girls I see, I didn't even get my first drink. I was like, I'm gonna go say hello. Excuse me. And I go up, where are you guys from? We're from Algeria. We talk for 5 minutes. We're getting along. They ask me where I'm from, and I say America, and I bullshit you not. They throw their arms up like this in front of me, and they tell me to go. And no other words. And I'm not, to be perfectly frank, I think the average American would have behaved brash. I think they would have gotten loud. They would have got offended. I do this for a living, and I was sitting there. I'm like, honestly, if I were watching this from the outside, I get it. And so I just kind of went. There's another group of girls at the next table, and I was like, on to the next. What are you going to do here? I turned to my friend who travels like this 2 times a year every year. He lives in Germany. He goes all over the place. And I asked him, I was like, do I have to get used to this? He goes, no, man, I don't know what was wrong with those girls. Don't worry about it. And if you read the article, 9 or 10 days into the trip, it got to the point where he was like, dude, you have to talk about this on your show because this is completely new. There's always a frustration with America. There's the USA crowd that drives foreigners absolutely nuts. And I get that. But this was something entirely different. And it even got to the point where I did not want to say that I was American. I wanted to say I was Canadian. And I'm thankful my friend stopped me because he said it's the people that are still preaching common sense that need to embrace being American, especially abroad, to show this isn't the norm. And
Yeah.
I did end up making a ton of friends, but I had to break through barriers to convince them that I wasn't a crazy person before they would actually trust me. Helps
Yeah.
having said, hey, go to this webpage and listen to me talk for 20 minutes. You tell me what you
Yeah.
think about how
Well,
I think.
because and it's always hard because, growing up, if when we talked about Russia, I always thought about the evil empire, and until and obviously you travel abroad, you realize the people are not the leaders, but a lot of people don't travel abroad a lot, and they don't think a lot more deeply about what they read in the news about a country. So a lot of people's perceptions are very monolithic about the people in a country that sucks so bad.
Absolutely.
I mean, I hired, in Minocqua, there's no workers. Northern Wisconsin, the average age is like 63,
Yeah.
and you try to get line cooks at a restaurant, you try to get servers at a restaurant, good luck. So most of the businesses up there, we hire what's called J1 visa people, kids who are basically get a visa for a year and they have to do a little bit of schooling, but they also have to work. And we got people from like Russia or Belarusia and places that the exchange rate was really good for them to make the U.S. dollar over here. And they came over, and the first thing they were like the same thing. They were like, I know America thinks Russia sucks, and it does.
Yeah.
But we're smart kids trying to get out of Russia, and that's why we're like doing a J1 visa thing and working in America. I can't, and it's so wild to me that there will come a time, and it probably won't be so far away, where where you and I might not be allowed to travel to countries that we wanted to travel to, and or we both don't have kids, but kids of folks won't be able to have like student visas or travel abroad for their universities because of what we're doing.
Yeah, I actually I spoke with a friend who was traveling around Europe during the time right after we invaded Iraq, and he said it was reminiscent of that. He said they were actually told, we were still in high school when that stuff was happening. I don't know what he was doing over there. It was some kind of school trip. And they told him, do not bring your Appleton East clothing. Do not bring anything that talks about Wisconsin. Do not bring anything that talks about America. And the one time somebody slipped up and wore something about America, he said someone swerved their car towards them and screamed like bleeping American. And he said, listening to your story, because I talked about it for an hour on the show yesterday. He said it made me flash back to that era. So the illegal, we are essentially at the same point we were when we were illegally occupying a nation that had nothing to do with 9/11. That's the way people are perceiving us right now. I there's an interview on my Facebook page right now with a young man, Matthew, who's been studying American history for 10 years. He works on a ship. I had gone snorkeling, and that's where I met him, and was sharing his thoughts about how just taken aback he was. And he said, "You talked about Russia in your last setup there for what you just said," and he essentially laid it out there. He's like, "You expect to see this in Russia. You expect to see this in North Korea. To see this in America, it's completely jaw dropping to him." And I asked him, he said, he told me off the air he wanted to visit America. And I asked him on the record, I said, "Would you come to America?" He went, "If this stopped, absolutely. But there's no way you would get him to go there with the way that things currently are." The kid who's the spinal surgeon wants to stay. He wants to move with our friends in Chicago, right? Maybe he goes out to the West Coast. He said if the ice raids keep happening, he's not sticking around. He's going to take it back to South Korea. And I don't blame him for a single second with the way you're watching these things. It looks like we don't want you here. And it's a bad look.
Yeah. So speaking of, I mean, I think this whole segment should be about our foreign perception of us around the world, and obviously, let's move to the Olympics, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I mean, you came back when the Olympics started with both JD Vance getting booed and all these skiers kind of, what are your thoughts on that, man? I mean, it's wild.
Yeah, and I think the most frustrating part, and what's interesting is you're even seeing right-wing podcasters call it out right now, is we've always assessed MAGA as being a cult, and I don't think that's been an over-the-top perception. There's an element of politics in general that is cultish, but there is something special about what MAGA is. And the homogeny of thought really sticks out to me here. The idea that you can never criticize anything ever about America is what sticks out to me. I oftentimes relate politics to sports. I say politics is just sports for adults with consequences. At the end of the day, that is what politics is. And I am from Pittsburgh. I am a Steelers fan. Do I think in 2026 that the Steelers are going to win the Super Bowl? No, I do not. I don't even think they're going to make the playoffs. They're in a bad position right now. Does that mean I hate Pittsburgh? Does that mean I hate the Steelers? No, it does not. And I feel like when it comes to sports, we can rationalize, we can conceptualize that that's how it works. But for some reason, the idea that you even set up as a disclaimer in your comments, "I love America and I love that it has afforded me the right to be able to ski for a freaking living and to try and achieve this gold medal," even with that qualifier, then saying, "But I don't agree with 100% of the stuff that's happening all the time." That means you should lose your right to be able to compete as an Olympic athlete. It's such a ridiculous concept that if you step back and think about it for even 6 seconds, it should go away. And I don't know how much longer they can continue to try and pull this kind of stuff because it does feel manufactured to me. Like,
Yeah,
who's
I mean,
really mad about this?
I so I always come back to the who are we really hearing this from? Because we heard it from Trump in Truth Social, which obviously it's coming from him, but I mean, still, how many people when when the president of the United States is lambasting a freaking 19-year-old like Olympic athlete, who is just simply saying, "Yeah, I love my family, I love my friends. I don't know what's if I like what's going on in America." They're very
Yeah.
sheepish when they say this stuff because what are you gonna say when you're a 19-year-old, and you're seeing all this crap happen in your country? You're trying to do the right thing, but you're also like you're not an athlete nor are you an artist unless you're absolutely true to yourself. You can't fake yourself out every day as an athlete and say, you know, I'm, I need to hit this time, but I'm 5 seconds short of this time to get a gold medal. So, but as long as I like believe that I can do it, I'm going to do it. No, you have to be true to your heart and to your brain if you are an Olympic athlete, just like if you are like a great artist. And that's why these kids can't say, "I love America," because
And here's the thing, if she said Trump 2028, if she turned on, she's like, "Yeah, I love being from America. I think Trump should run again." What do you think the Truth Social post would have been about? Like, the idea that they don't like it. To bring it back to the Steelers, Mason Rudolph went on stage with Trump during the election season. There wasn't a shut up and dribble moment, even from liberals. There was no, what is this athlete doing getting involved in politics? It was a moment, it came, it went. He was a backup quarterback. Who
yeah,
cares? And you kinda move on with it from there. What we saw those skiers say, especially surrounded, let's be honest, surrounded by people that if it were in America, there's a chance ICE would be harassing them right now. So you're sitting there being asked about America, surrounded by, in all likelihood, the most diverse population that person has ever been surrounded by.
yeah,
What are you supposed to say about it
totally.
without coming off as callous or uninformed
Just
about what's going
just
on?
imagine being in the Olympic Village and knowing that anybody from a country that has darker skin than you, if the Olympics were being held in America, could get hauled off to a detention center. How are you supposed to talk to other Olympic athletes? Yeah, exactly, without feeling deeply ashamed, of
Right, and there's a certain element, there's a humanity element to this, because you watch a lot of people try and circumvent it. They're like, "Well, look, I don't know a lot about politics." Like, it's not like we're talking about the middleman that is the pharmaceutical benefits manager. I understand sidestepping that conversation. Do you have a friend who's not white? If yes, you are impacted by this, even if you've never voted in your life, if you've never turned on the news in your life, you have an understanding at the very least of what people are going through right now. And I think there's a very basic level to this that everybody has a thought about, even if you really don't know. What did you know at 19 about politics? I didn't know shit. I didn't know anything that I was talking about. I used to say, I'm a fiscal conservative, but a social liberal. Like, you know what I mean? I didn't know what I was saying. I just said what I heard other people say. But when it comes to ICE, when it comes to immigration, and specifically the way we are treating people, even if you're in favor of deportations, even if, which I'm not, but even if you are, you know what you're seeing is wrong. I think what she said, I don't even know that it took courage. Like, it's just having two eyeballs and the ability to use basic deductive reasoning.
Yeah, but guess who didn't have 2 eyeballs and couldn't use basic deductive reasoning a week before that? I don't even know if you were here, maybe you weren't. Like, the Grammys happened, and Jelly Roll was asked what he thought about,
I didn't see this.
Jelly Roll was asked about what he thought about what's going on in the country, and he or about what, Alex Preddy being murdered, and he's like, I'm just a redneck. Nobody cares about my opinion. Uh, all I know is we all have to love God." Like, he said that, and and it's obvious that he's already like hook, line, and sinker, like, sold his soul to MAGA because he couldn't, he was blind to what happened, and he sidestepped the issue. The same night, uh, Bad Bunny gets like the best album of the year award, obviously, and he said "Ice Out" on the same night, and he said "Ice Out," and we all have to love each other. And it was like it was almost like the musical genres basically spoke for themselves,
Yeah, right. No,
It was like
honestly,
anybody, you don't have a lot of black artists in country music, and and obviously they're down in Nashville in Tennessee, and it was kind of obvious, like, you're speaking for your genre, and it's not a good look for country music at all.
but like that's just it, Kirk. And it does come down to the fact, because I'm anti-consumerist, right? Like, I always joke, if the economy were based on my pocketbook, we would have collapsed as a country a long time ago. Like, I really don't spend my dollars in a lot of different places. And that's oftentimes a left-leaning trait. And the example that I have, Jelly Roll's a very, no pun intended, he's a large presence out there right now, in the music
He's getting
industry.
smaller. Ozempic is helping the guy out a ton.
Very true, very true. But you're talking to a guy. I've been listening to Eminem since I was 10 years old, far too young to be listening to Eminem when the Slim Shady LP came out. If anyone listening remembers, during the first Trump term, Eminem came out during the BET Awards and laid a 4-minute diss track, no beat, just him standing in a parking lot talking crap on Donald Trump. This is in the rap industry, but a lot of his base is white and a lot of his base is from the Midwest. He lost a third of his fan base that night. Now, when you have 100 million people buying your albums, that's fine. Like you can figure out how to absorb it. I think a lot of these guys, they see the dollar signs, they see the life that they have, and they don't have the guts to stand up and speak out about it because the fact is MAGA does spend their dollars in ways. Bud Light wants to put a trans person on a can. We will tank Bud Light right now. You want to put a lesbian couple in the Buzz Lightyear movie? We will tank the Buzz Lightyear movie. Like they have a very good way of doing it. Meanwhile, when you do something to placate a liberal or left leaning audience, there's no guarantee that we're not. Were you going to start drinking Bud Light? I know I wasn't. So like,
Yeah,
there's an element of truth to that. I wasn't going to go and buy a Jelly Roll album if he did stand up and say the right thing, but a lot of people would have not bought it had
yeah,
he said the wrong, or
yeah.
you know how I mean to say that.
Well,
But yeah,
you're right. I mean,
that's what sticks out to me.
I think, and coming from I used to manage a rock band. We went to Nashville every 3 months, try to get them signed to a record label. So I was kind of in the industry for a while, and there, you might be too young for this, Ben, but the Dixie Chicks, there's a lesson to be learned. The
Yeah.
Dixie Chicks, when they came out against Trump, they never recovered. I don't know if it was Trump or even Bush, maybe
I was
back
going to say,
then.
you're
Maybe
thinking of Bush. They
maybe
came out
against
against the
against the
war in
war.
Iraq. Yeah.
They never really recovered because country music stations would not play their music. And there's probably a lesson to be learned in the country world. But I mean, but how sad, right? I mean, how
It
sad for an
is.
entire, because I actually like country music better. I want to get on to talk musician at heart, and it's so sad that it talks about the fakeness of commercial music, really. Because as an artist, I continuously say the artists are we're the canaries in the coal mine. Like we can't take bullshit. Like it doesn't go through our brains because as a real artist, in order to reach people, you have to reach to their souls, and bullshit doesn't reach people's souls. So the fact that like many country singers, are latching onto the bullshit or looking away, it saddens me because it takes an artist to even do commercial stuff. You still have to be good at your instrument. You still have to be a good singer, and it's sad. It's sad to think these guys are
Yeah.
selling their souls.
And I hate saying this because I always say in the creative field, who the hell am I to say this kind of stuff? But like, I do not look at the large commercial operations. They're not here to make art. They're here to make money, and I feel like that's made pretty prevalent. Hell, it might be naive, but I look at outside the box as art. I don't look at it as a show. I mean, it's a political talk show, but like I project my own creativity and thought process through it every single day. Whether that be through the cussing that makes some people mad in the building, or whatever the situation may be. I always have looked at it through the lens that you kind of talked like there. It's kind of like Larry the Cable Guy was never like a real stand-up comic. He's worth $100 million. I don't know if I ever laughed at him. It's the same principle there. Some people are going to be sellouts, and some people want you to be sellouts, and it
Yeah,
drives you nuts when you're not one of those.
yeah,
So
I
I
hear you.
get it. I totally get it.
Well, let's just say at the end of the day, life feels a lot better whether as long as you can pay your bills, life feels a lot better not selling out. I take it
Yeah.
from me. I think I could have sold a lot more beer in my life if I sold out a little bit. But I tell you, I wake up every morning and feel damn good about what my life is.
Absolutely. There's probably some days when I walk out of here, you're like, man, I wish you'd be a little nicer to the Democrats sometimes. And it's like,
I,
no, this is
I
how
do.
I feel right now. This is
I
how
know.
I
I
feel
do. I
right
do.
now.
You've got a couple texts from me after some of your articles. I'm like, bro, this is our audience here. Come on now. I mean, I shit on them too, but woo. You
but
really
it's
do
but
sometimes.
it's real, and I
Yeah,
think that's what if you're I tell myself that's what people want, but when you watch Jelly Roll's reaction, you know there's some people that just wanna hear the company line, and that's very
totally.
disappointing. But,
All
we can
right.
do some
So
Munich here, we got some time if,
yeah. So I want to talk about there was another article and we're talking about perception of America abroad. And so I guess every year there's a security conference in Munich, Germany, where like all the NATO folks meet and they talk about, global security. Uh Last year, uh, JD Vance, I guess, was sent from America to be our representative, and he basically just, bullied them, bullied all of Europe, and said, "You guys are kowtowing to the left," and each it was completely panned by globally. Like, what the heck is this guy even talking about? That was last year. This year, ahead of the conference, they come up with their security report, and they said that Trump is a wrecking ball for our entire global security. They said like it took 70 years, after World War II to build the kind of global security infrastructure that we've built, which has been able to avoid another world war. It's yes, there are skirmishes, but enough partnerships and alliances are there to keep the worst of the worst from letting things spread to, like past a couple countries. And they said that Trump is taking a wrecking ball to that. Did you read any of that, or what do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, I do a lot of conversations about NATO, and this is why Trump is deadly, is because what he does is he takes leftist positions. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not saying I want to disband NATO, but I recognize the imperialist nature of NATO. I recognize that we do pay for the defense of everybody else so that they can do universal health care and free college and build this transportation. I recognize that that's happening and needs to be addressed. For not a single second do I think that Donald Trump is doing some kind of negotiation to provide Medicare for all or a better public transit system for Americans. And he is trying to find ways to extort people that have been our allies since World War II. And that's where he is able to capture the minds of people, though, is because he takes a frustration that exists and is real, but then bastardizes it in a way that isn't actually going to make anything better. And all that's fundamentally going to happen is Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and all these other companies are going to see their stock prices shoot through the roof because now everybody else has to also contribute to the military industrial complex. And you're watching these leaders start to panic because, yeah, there was a gravy train. And yeah, they did benefit from America spending money almost exclusively on defense. And they're like, oh, son of a gun, we might actually have to do this. But it's not going to be to the benefit of anybody, no matter how much MAGA wants to believe this is a good thing.
Yeah,
So he takes it, go for it.
yeah, Denmark having to now buy planes to defend Greenland is gonna somehow make it back to Lockheed Martin, which is gonna somehow make
Right.
it back to Trump. Trump is gonna
Yes,
benefit from being aggressor towards Greenland because Denmark now has to fricking do stuff. They have to have an army,
exactly.
which sucks.
They never had to care about this kind of stuff. And again, they shouldn't have to. Like, I'm a firm believer that this world can work without us taking or ruining things. And by us, I mean everybody in NATO. But then we got to have a real talk about it. I was reading the article you sent to me, and they said there's very little belief that this president can address the inequality crisis because the same 10 companies that are raking in record profits and making all of our lives expensive are doing the same damn thing in Europe. I
Yeah.
say, my new litmus test, any person that comes on outside the box, I say, what do you think about the current state of corporate profits? And that will tell you everything you need to know about the person that you are talking to in that moment. And the people know a bullshit artist when they see one. And the people in Europe don't like what they're hearing out of this administration.
I hear you. The last thing, and we'll be done,
You
is
said we couldn't talk for an hour, by the way. We could
we
totally
we
go for an
could we
hour, but
could
go
we
on.
could we could. I gotta run a company, and and you already talked for 3 hours today.
Yeah, right. I'm not saying I'll do it. I'm saying we could do it. But go ahead. What was your last
But,
question?
uh but the last thing is, it keeps on Like, we've invaded Venezuela. Just 2 weeks ago, we were like just about to invade Greenland, and like a week ago, we were rattling our saber at Iran. Um, you know, for reasons I don't really even truly understand. But my friend, who's a retired Army colonel, who we're gonna get on and talk on Thursday. He's like, yeah, yeah, we're gonna invade Iran. It's kind of a done deal. Like, all the people that are still in the military are telling me that that's the next ball to drop. I'm like, hey, what's yes, so we're gonna. I mean, what are we doing this for? It's not even, we're not even really doing it. We're like threatening to do it, or we're doing crazy things in Venezuela. But at the end of the day, we've forgotten about the last two things, already.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And see, here's the thing though, Kirk, and if our mutual friend Patty Vasquez hears this, she's going to laugh because it always comes back to me with this. Um, in May of 2025, or excuse me, in March of 2025, the largest deposit of lithium in the world was discovered in Iran. In June of 2025, we bombed them. And we said it was in the name of trying to stop a nuclear program. The war in Ukraine is about access to the minerals in the Donbass region. Taking Venezuela is about access to the minerals in Venezuela. Greenland, because our president is such a moron, he doesn't realize we already have mining rights to Greenland as it's set up right now, and we don't even need to do any of this. They say it's national security. They say it's because of fentanyl. They say it's because of Russian expansion. They say it's because of the Iranian nuclear plant. It always boils back down to access to minerals. And the real kicker here, Kurt, is that it's access to minerals to make semiconductor chips for technology that none of us fucking want. And like, that's the worst part. I'm not saying that if it were tech that we wanted, I'd be in favor of all of this stuff going on, but it's to build something that quite literally nobody is asking for except for a handful of companies. You and I both know if we all of a sudden got access to large deposits of lithium, Apple wouldn't turn around and be like, iPhones are only going to be $50 going forward. Like, that's not a thing. And again, I wouldn't advocate for it if that were the case. But you and I both know there's still going to be $2,000, but the input costs would go way, way down. And that is what all of these moves are ultimately boiling down to, making sure we have access to it and China doesn't. And that's what this is all about. And we look like the jerks on the nationwide scale at this point as a result of it.
All right, Ben. Thanks so much for joining me, my friend. I will see you tomorrow, I think, at our
Yeah.
podcast when we get
Yes.
everybody back together again, getting the band back together.
You guys
And
miss
then
me?
and I'm sure we'll hear another rant from you next Tuesday.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, so thank you very much, Kurt.
All right. Take care, my friend.
Yeah,
See you.
you too, bud. Bye.